2.3, substituting. Our learning intention, to use the method of substitution to solve expression. Our success criteria, I can substitute values into algebraic expressions. I can use evaluate using CAS. I didn't write the success criteria, a little bit confusing, but that's all right. All right. Substituting into algebraic expressions. Substitution is where a pronumeral is replaced by a numerical value in order to evaluate an expression. Remember to use the correct order of operations: brackets, powers, multiplication, division, working left from right, addition, subtraction, working left from right. So if you remember, I'm just changing pens, sorry guys. This is our BODMAS rule. You guys remember it like that. So substitution is, if I had 2a plus 3, I would say a equals 5. What's my answer? And solve for that. This is substituting. Taking a pronumeral or a letter and actually giving it a numerical value. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, i.e. by hand, and then I'll give you the instructions on what to do with the CAS and then show you an alternate method with the CAS. So, the example, if P equals 2, Q equals -3 and R equals 8, evaluate each expression. So remember, it's an expression because it doesn't have an equal sign. So, A, 2PQ minus R. So that first one would be 2 PQ minus R, which is equal to 2 times 2 times -3, take away 8. 2 times 2 is 4, times -3 gives us -12, take 8. -12 take 8 is -20. I will tell you that I did check the CAS earlier and it is actually -20. B, R squared plus 2Q. So I'm still using those same three values across the top of P equals 2, Q equals -3 and R equals 8. I substitute them in there. My R value of 8, 8 squared plus 2 times -3. Now remembering, I'm doing my brackets first, no brackets, then I do my my powers or my indices, and that will give me 8 squared, which is 64. Then I start with my multiplication of 2 times -3, which gives me -6. And I add that, and that's effectively 64 take 6, giving me 58. Again, another one I checked in the calculator and I know it's right. And then the big one that's got brackets, darn it. C, 5P, open bracket, 3Q minus QR, close bracket, equals. I'm going to put in some values. 5P being 5 times 2, open brackets. 3 times -3, take -3 times 8. Now, first of all, my brackets. Do everything in the brackets. I'm going to keep my 5 times 2 on the outside because we're leaving him. 3 times -3 gives me -9. And -3, so at this point I'm ignoring this operation in the middle. I'm just doing this out the front. This after it. So -3 times 8 gives me -24. And I know that if I've got double negative there, it becomes positive. So I've got 5 times 2, no, I haven't evaluated that yet, -9 plus 24. And to solve that, it would be 5 times 2 minus 9 plus 24 is 15. I've found an answer for my bracket, and then I move on to my multiplication. So 5 times 2 is 10, and 10 times 15. 10 times 15 gives me 150. So I've done this step by step without having to use the CAS at all. Now on to CAS instructions. So if I was going to put this into the CAS, I would put in my, I'm only going to show you the one. I would put in my expression, and I would put in 2 times P times Q subtract R. Then I'd use a substitution or a where symbol, which is, in order to find that, you'd use your control button and the equals sign, or the equal button. This equal button will give you a little pop-up menu, and you use the very last symbol, which is a straight line, straight vertical line. You would put in P equals 2, then you would put in or press the little space bar, which is down on the bottom right near the Z button. Type in the word and, put the space bar in again, type in your Q value, so Q equals -3, your space bar again, and R equals 8, space, oh, don't need your space bar, and then hit enter. Now, if you were going to be using these values more frequently than just the one time, so if you're using them once, this is a great method to use. But if you were using them more than once, for example, in this case, we're using them 3 times, I really don't want to have to enter the P, Q, and R values 3 times. If I was only using it once, that's great. Use this method. If you're using it more than once, move on to method 2. So, method 2. You would open your new document. That's pretty straightforward. We have a store button. So this is a little symbol that has an arrow. And what you're doing is you are allocating a value to the pronumeral, and you're saying every time I use this pronumeral or this letter, it's going to be this value until I turn the calculator off, or I reassign another value. So what you do is you for example, for the number, for the letter P, and being equal to 2, you put in the 2. Then you would press your control button. And then there's a button that has a little arrow across the top of it. It says STO. It's your variable button. So you would press that, and then you'd press P. And then you'd end up on your calculator having 2 arrow P, and then your answer would be 2, implying that P has been allocated the value of 2. You continue that with all of your pronumerals, and then once you type in your expression, it will pop up with your pronumerals being in a bold font, implying that they have been allocated a value. Then you press enter, and it gives you the answer. So the answer that we found manually and on the calculator was 20 for 2 PQR. In this case, using the second method, it's exactly the same. Now, if you want to clear any of the values, you press your menu button, choose 1 for actions and 4 for clear A to Z, and that will clear any of the values that have been stored into your CAS. Our last example is substituting into formulas. So a formula is an algebraic rule that describes a mathematical relationship between variables. From a height h(m) above meters above sea level, an observer can see a distance of d kilometers to the horizon, where d is equal to 8 times the square root of h over 5. What distance correct to the nearest kilometre can be seen from a tower 128 metres above sea level? Alright, so I've got my formula d equals 8 square root of h over 5. Yes, it's going to be easier on the CAS, but you can still do this by hand. So d equals 8 times the square root of h on 5, where h is equal to 128 metres. So the first thing I would do is substitute in 128 over 5 square root sign, and then find your answer and multiply that by 8. Now your answer will be approximately 40 kilometres. So your square root sign on the calculator, You can either do this one of two ways. You can do 128 divided by 5, then find the square root of that, or press your square root button, open a bracket, put 128 divided by 5, close your bracket and hit enter, then multiply your solution by 8. For the CAS, it's very, very similar. You pop in your your equation. Remember to put a multiplication sign after the 8 before the square root sign. And if you're looking for your square root sign is in a box that sort of looks, a button that sort of looks a little bit like this. It's on the right-hand side and it's got a book next to it. It has both the fraction and it has the square root signs in it. If your answer ends up as a fraction, you press Control Enter and it gives you an approximated answer. It doesn't give you the exact decimal answer because otherwise it would be too many recurring figures. This will round it as best as it can to what you're after.